Why stand-up comedy is the greatest profession on the planet. And I'm going to digress for a minute. A man named Norman Cousins wrote a book called Laughter Math. He wrote another book called The Anatomy of an Illness. And in this man's life, he was in a hospital, had a heart condition. They told him he was going to die. And the doctors explained to him stress, and he didn't have long to live. And he thought, laying in a hospital, if negative input, stress, made me ill, then positive input should make me well. He checked out of the hospital, and he'd only watch I Love Lucy reruns, Candid Camera, Three Stooges, the Marx Brothers. He'd only listen to comedy albums, and he literally laughed himself to health. He lived 27 years after the doctors told him he was going to die. Because of him, UCLA did research on what happens to the human body when a person laughs. We always have known that laughter is psychologically a deterrent, because the brain can't think of two things at the same time. So if you're watching a comedian on stage laughing, you're not thinking of your problem, so it's a psychological deterrent. But now UCLA did this research that when the body, when you laugh, the brain releases endorphins into the bloodstream, which are chemicals that are actual healing agents. So that's why after a hearty laugh, after you've laughed so hard and tears are running down your eyes and you go, oh, this sense of well-being comes over you because your body's gone through an actual chemical change. So laughter is not only psychologically uplifting, it's physiologically deterrent. So we comedians are physicians of the soul. So you can refer to Dr. Bill Gorgo or Dr. James Wesley, we really are physicians of the soul. That's why it's the greatest profession on this planet. We make people healthy. We make people feel better. That's why whenever I talk to young comedians, I say, you're in the greatest profession on the planet. Don't tarnish it. I'll tell you how not to tarnish it. Don't talk bad about other comedians. Have you ever gone to a doctor and said, gee, I was thinking about going to Dr. Milroy. Have you ever heard a doctor say, Milroy, I wouldn't trust my snake with that? They have too much respect for their profession, as we should. What we do, what we do. You know what we do night after night. The struggle we've gone through, and yet with 3 people in the audience, we'll still get up there because maybe that one person needs this laugh more than we need the gig. You'll never know. I know all of you could tell me a dozen stories. I've had people would come up to me and say, you don't know me, but one time I was calling the lawyer's office and the woman in the answering service, he's not in. I said, will you tell him, please, Tom Dreesen called. She said, are you Tom Dreesen, the comedian? I said, yes. She said, my husband died of cancer, he blah, blah, blah. She said he was ill for 6 months, and one night he said, I don't want to stay in the house anymore, let's go somewhere. And we went over to the Comedy Store, and you were on, and my husband laughed so hard that night. She said, and that's the last time I ever heard my husband laugh. And she said, so whenever I envision him, when I think of him, I think of that night, because I want to remember him laughing. That's the power we have as comedians. That's the health that we bring to the world. So that's why it's such an important profession, and why we shouldn't, why I don't ever want to talk bad about another comedian. I sound like Will Rogers. I never met a comedian I didn't like on stage. I met a few off stage that you say, I don't think I want to hang around with this person. But on stage, I'd always find something and say, well, that's funny, or that's clever, First of all, I loved comedians before I was one. I never thought I'd be a comedian, but before I was one, I thought, wow, can you imagine what they do? And that's why we have to have such respect for comedians, for what they do, what they bring to our society. What other profession does that? What other profession brings joy and laughter and health and true health, So, you're special people, and I'm proud that you're my friends.